Hey, Everypony.
Hey, Everypony, what's up?
What's up?
As you see, I got my sonic screwdriver.
And mine. I'm jelly of him.
David Tennant's and
Smith.
The 10th
And the 11th.
Doctor. Two of the best.
Yep.
Only he has the one of the second best. I have the one of the best.
Yeah.
And today we're gonna be listening to Chomping on the Bit.
Another reading by Ace-Ka.
And thank you so much. This is the reason we subscribe to you, dude.
Yeah.
All the fanfictions you read, they're great. They're funny.
And we don't make sure and we don't have to read them ourselves. We just listen to you.
Unless we find ones that don't have any readings or any reactions at all. Like, I would like to read at least one sometime in the future, but enough with that shit. Let's get going. Here we go. Chomping on the Bit.
Welcome to Chomping on the Bit.
Okay, intro.
By Raging Semi. Reviews. 3. Table of contents. Report this. Print. EPUB. Text size. Plus or minus. Chomping on the Bit.
If you noticed, I shaved. My facial
Well,
hair was getting a little too bushy for me.
Normally, Spike would have done the chores, but she wanted to do them herself today.
Really?
It was, after all, Dragon Assistant Appreciation Day. It had
Okay.
said so right on the calendar. It's not that she didn't appreciate Spike every day of the year without a calendar to tell her to do so, but she felt like the calendar gave her a good excuse to really appreciate him with some gusto. So that's why she was cleaning up the place. Twilight got to Spike's little basket
I
on
hope
the foot
this
of her
isn't
bed.
what I missed.
She hadn't had to clean up after him since he was just a little baby. She pulled his blanket to throw it in the hamper for washing. A small book fell out. Twilight didn't recognize it, and she could at least recognize most of the books in her library. It must be his bedtime reading material,
That would make
she
sense.
thought to herself. She reflexively opened it and started flipping through. It was Spike's diary.
Oh
Harper
no.
wanted to stop reading immediately. In fact, she could almost hear Pinkie Pie's voice telling her to stop right now or she'd lose Spike forever!
Forever!
Part of the reason was her natural curiosity. Another part was her habit of finishing every book she
That was
started.
Gashi who just flew
There
by.
were
I think they know.
naughty things in Spike's diary. Fantasies. That didn't surprise her.
Rarity.
She certainly didn't think less of Spike for it. She had some pretty embarrassing stuff in her own diary, so she was no pony to judge.
Alright.
A lot of it was about Rarity. That didn't surprise Twilight
Typical.
either.
Okay.
Obviously, the little player had a hard-on for Rarity since the day they met.
Really, bro?
There were other
gosh.
ponies in there, too.
Really, bro?
Fluttershy, Pinkie Pie, Apple Bloom, Cheerily.
Surely.
And then Twilight started to read about herself.
That teacher.
Yeah, I know.
She had to sit down on her bed. The shock was so intense. She had just made her own bed. The star and moon print bed spread was
Bed
still warm
spread.
out of the dryer.
Yeah.
In all her
Well,
time, in all of her
that's the
studies of friendship, Twilight had even considered Spike's feelings before.
Ooh.
Had never even considered Spike's feelings before. She felt a little ashamed of herself for not seeing what was right in front of her. This happened with alarming regularity. It's not like Twilight was a mother figure to Spike. She wasn't even all that much older, as she had been a little filly herself when she hatched him.
True that.
She felt more like he was a little brother, although she realized Spike had no reason to feel the same way. She was a bit older than him, something like an authority figure to him, but much closer to a friend. They lived under the same roof and slept in the same room. They had been there for each other, and taken care of each other. They had been through adventure together, fighting off the Diamond Dogs, for instance. It was no wonder that Spike had feelings for her.
I guess
Twilight
it would make
unconsciously
sense.
laid backwards on her bed,
Yeah.
holding his diary above her. She read about things that Spike wanted to do to her, and why. Twilight had no idea that he had such an imagination,
Oh no!
or for that matter, that he was such a romantic at heart. Aww.
Aw.
Twilight slowly started to slide her front hoof down her body, and it ended up between her hind legs.
Oh, hold on.
There's probably more objective material in here about her than there was about Rarity.
Steal.
You know,
Hey, give me that.
it's weird.
I just want to look at it.
I was reading about Trixie when she was masturbating,
Oh, Princess Molestia.
Clopping.
Remember?
flopping,
Put your glasses back
and
on.
I found it really attractive.
So did I.
Yet and it's the same thing with Twilight here, but when I see a female in real life, masturbate, it's not really my thing.
Whatever you say, bro. Whatever you say.
This is odd.
I agree, that is a bit odd.
Whatever you say, pal.
Spike did write that he
Second
thought
novel.
Rarity was prettier than Twilight. Twilight didn't mind him writing that. She had to agree to it herself. She didn't think much of her own looks, but reading the diary, it seemed like Spike cared a lot more for Twilight and always had. He never brought it up because they were so close. He thought she would automatically spurn him and ruin the solid relationship that they already had. Twilight used her magic to levitate the book above her. She lowered her other hoof between her legs and rubbed harder and deeper. She shut her eyes, only opening them occasionally to read another sentence or two. She wished she had known sooner.
Oh no.
Spike got home from Whitley Pulp's stationery store. He had a bag full of nice new scrolls and inks and pens. He was very proud of himself. Twilight had given him the morning off.
Yeah.
He didn't know why, and he didn't care to ask. He was just thankful to have such a lucky day.
He's a child. How does he
Spike
work?
stopped in his tracks. Twilight was standing right in front of him at the library's lobby, having a funny-looking smile on her face.
Oh no.
What did I do?
Something
He
bad's
asked,
gonna happen.
feeling his luck fade away. Nothing, she said. Well, then, what did you do? He asked. Is it a big mess?
Kind of.
No, nothing's wrong.
Really?
Then why are you looking at me
You read
like
his
that?
diary!
It's Dragon Assistant Appreciation Day. Dragon what? Assistant Appreciation Day. There's a day for that? Spike, Twilight said, I know how hard you work to help me out, and I'm really grateful for it, even if I don't always show it. I hardly ever show it. So I wanted to make it up to you. Spike, I appreciate you. You're very good to me. So whatever it is that you want to do today, your wish is my command. Really? Uh-huh. Anything? Absolutely. Can I... He paused.
Kind of wish I was Spike right now.
Twilight.
Oh,
Can I have the rest of the afternoon off too? Sure. Oh, wow, breathed Spike.
I thought he was
This
gonna say
really
something
is
else,
my
thank
lucky
God.
day. Spike? I still get my full allowance, right?
Meh.
Of course.
one bit.
Spike,
No, he probably gets more
all
than
of the
that.
things in the world you could possibly want to do, and with me, just taking a day off is it?
She's
No,
not.
she's...
She's trying to lure him in.
Well,
This is horrible.
I mean, you get, if you want
Funny,
that done, you gotta do it yourself, I guess. Well, we could go fishing. Spike, she started getting frustrated. You could help me find some jewels. I'm pretty hungry. Spike! Go out for lunch. Spike! Maybe catch a movie? Spike, I read your diary! She didn't mean to say it quite so loud or at all. Spike's jaw slowly dropped open. He turned beet red at the same time. How dare you! I can't believe you! You're horrible! How could you? He tried to scream all at once. Spike,
Oh, Luna.
how could you betray me just like that? Oh God, this is so embarrassing. I can't even look you in the eye. Spike, I want to do what you wrote in the book. Oh! Before she could go any further. Spike's jaw nearly dislocated
Oh,
when
no.
they couldn't stop it.
No. He's a baby.
I could just imagine that, like,
Meh.
it's all like
Oh,
in
my
shock
stomach.
already, and
Sorry, I've been a little sick the past couple days.
the rest of his
You
jaw
better not
just,
get me
like,
sick.
dislodges itself, and he's like, he
I think
can't
it was something I
read
ate
it.
actually.
He's
Yesterday,
like trying to read.
we were supposed to hang out yesterday, but I got sick.
Oh, good.
I was throwing up.
Are you serious?
Well, you said it was more than likely
Uh-huh.
something you ate.
Yeah, I
mean,
think it was
if
the
you want-
potato pancakes.
It's your
Ugh.
special day.
Potato
after all.
pancakes.
I had potato pancakes
Even
at
page
midnight on
107?
Friday.
Oh.
And
Especially page 107, if that's what you want.
oh no.
What about something I've always wanted to do but never wrote down? She was suddenly worried.
I'm scared
His
now.
diary had already been pretty imaginative. She couldn't think of what on earth he hadn't already written down. Sure, she said anyway. Can we do some role-playing? He asked. Excuse me? Spike shut his eyes and concentrated on getting his words out.
He's not gonna make her
Can we do
be
some
dirty, is he?
role-playing? Twilight, can I ride you? Spike opened one eye. He was smiling
Oh
at him.
my god. I think I know where he's going.
She
with
was
this.
smiling at him.
Ride her.
They started on Twilight's bed. She had a thing about
You know
him
what I
getting on
mean.
her bed because of his shedding. A dragon?
He's shedding?
Whoa.
How does a dragon shed? It got scales.
Gonna
I don't
get
know.
Scales. Like, I know snakes and lizards do that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but when they shed, it's not like
They shed like
the
full
fur.
coat.
Like when
It's
they
not- it's not
shed,
like hair,
it's
like
just
a
big
dog.
coat. You can just
Yeah.
get rid of it.
how would that?
I don't know. Whatever. Whatever.
But it was seasonal, so there was no problem now. Twilight's covers had long since cooled from the dry.
My dog sheds
but they were
ear
still
freaking
nice
round.
Me too.
Not as soft as Twilight, Spike thought to himself. Spike was brushing Twilight. He had an assortment of brushes laid out on the bed. They were both comfortable and relaxed, lying in the sunshine.
At first it sounded like it's going to be a crop fic, and now what is it? He's just like petting
Twilight usually just used magic brushes.
Yeah, you need to get a haircut,
She never
bro.
had any idea how sensuous it could feel. Spike started with her mane. Twilight rolled her head back and closed her eyes. Spike was very careful around her horn. He knew how sensitive it could be, but still, he occasionally rubbed the brush up against the base of it as if to tease her. Spike switched brushes and went to work on her coat. He rubbed her down vigorously. It was almost like a massage. He started with the muscles on her neck and then slowly moved all the way down her back to the base of her tail. He brushed large circles around the curve of her hips. Done with her back, Twilight rolled over, belly up. Spike started again at her neck and worked down. He brushed her chest and then stroked up her front legs. He brushed her belly and was surprised at how good it could feel and how erotic.
Oh my God.
Spike stroked lower. She was completely exposed to him, but he didn't say a thing. He focused completely on brushing her coat. Spike stroked lower, and then down around her love, but without touching it.
Huh.
He brushed up her thighs and
Not a
mouth.
bad word, I guess.
Finally, Spike switched brushes again, and Twilight turned her back over so that he could brush her tail. He took a long time, making sure every hair was nice and straight. He kept brushing after he needed to. Long after he needed to. There was a part of him that didn't want to stop.
I'm sure everything will become clear soon.
He put the brush down and he
Raging
turned her
Summer.
head back to them. Shall I get dressed? She asked. Uh-huh.
Confused?
He nodded. What? Okay. Twilight got up off the bed. She felt like a million bits. She walked over to the dresser and Spike followed. Which saddle would you like? She asked as she pulled open the top.
Okay, I thought they meant ride her, like have sex with her, but I guess he's literally going to ride her.
Said Spike. How about the blue one? The one with the fleece? Okay, she said. Would you like to cinch it? Could you squeeze into it? Twilight got onto her hind legs and lifted the saddle high into the air. She pulled it down around her front legs and over her head. It got caught a bit around her shoulders, so Spike got behind her to help pull it further down. It was a tight fit. He had to get his little claws between the leather strap and her soft coat and
Why did somebody get so loud?
I don't know.
Finally, he got it squeezed down around her belly and made sure it was on straight.
There we go.
Twilight got down on all fours again, and Spike checked the stirrups. How about a bridle? Twilight asked. How about the decorative one? With all the sequins. You got it.
I'm so
Bit or no bit? Bit, please.
Huh.
Alright. At
There's
least
the
to start
title.
out.
Yeah.
I won't want it the whole time. Can you help me put this on? Spike carefully lifted the rein over her shoulders. Twilight opened her mouth for him. Oh, my God. He delicately placed the bit between her teeth, and she smiled to let him know that she was perfectly comfortable.
Ugh.
She lowered her head, and she raised the crown piece up and over her horn behind her ears. He was as cautious as if he were crowning the princess herself. Once he had the bridle on, he cinched up all the straps. How I look? She asked. Holy guacamole!
I
he said. I've never seen you look more beautiful before.
Aww.
Ooh, eh?
That's
Am
cute.
I ever? The lobby of the library was a quiet place, even when it was open. It had been closed since Spike got home from the store, and Twilight had locked the door behind him. There was barely any noise except for the ticking of the clock and the chiming of the hour.
What about Owlicious?
Suddenly, the noise was broken by
Yeah, right. What?
cacophony.
Whatever the word is, I guess.
I don't know what that means. Iron-shod hooves banged down the staircase. Twilight leaped down the last several stairs and flew into the room. "Ha ha!" shouted Spike, mounted on her back.
No. This is getting weirder as it goes. What
"Ha ha!" shouted
the
Spike,
hell?
mounted on her back. He had a large pot on his head. He waved around the yardstick
Pot?
as if it were a lance. He had his blanket around his neck as if it were a cape. Awesome! Twilight reared up on her hind legs and neighed furiously.
Excelsior!
"Onward, faithful steed!" Spike shouted. "We must rescue the fair maiden Princess Twilight Twilight from the evil Dragon King!
This is retarded.
No, this is funny.
Well, sorry, not retarded. I hate that word, but
This is great.
Yeah, it is.
Twilight neighed wildly again.
what the?
Then she got down on all fours and stomped on the floor with her front hoof and snorted. She took off. Spike would have fallen off if not for her stirrups and reins. Twilight started to leap over each piece of furniture as if they were fences and she were in a jumping show. This time, Spike came out of the stirrups and could only hold on to the reins.
Oh, God.
Twilight stopped as she cleared the last obstacle. She waited for Spike to regain his balance, and then get his feet back into the stirrups.
Okay, good.
She started stepping sideways and backwards, which was a bit tricky for a pony as non-athletic as she was.
Yeah.
Well,
Be
finally,
easier for
she
probably
ran
Rainbow
towards the
Dash
cellar
and
door.
Applejack.
Spike raised his yardstick lance. "Hark!" he shouted. "A cave! Surely this is the... Surely this is the lair of the evil Dragon King! Forward, my lovely steed! We must make haste before the villain can rob the fair damsel of her virtue!" Twilight neighed and then charged at the door.
This is
Excelsior!
no!
He shouted as he
You did
went
not
flying
just say
through.
that. You did not just say that. Oh my! I'm leaving. I'm gone. No.
The commotion on the first
Not
floor of the library
Excelsior.
mostly died down,
Excelsior.
except for the loud noises from the basement.
Why? What's wrong with that
There were the
phrase?
noises of Spike shouting, Twilight neighing, and a large
South
piece
Park.
of Twilight's lab equipment tipped over and crashed onto the floor. There was a miscellany of crashes, bangs, squeaks, and other assorted noises. Finally, the clopping of Twilight's hose coming back up the stairs, presumably having defeated the Dragon King.
Yay.
Spike's impromptu helmet was missing. His lance was snapped in half.
Yay.
The pair did a victory lap around the library, Twilight trotting all the way. They then went back upstairs to their loft to enjoy the pleasure of their spoils.
Yay.
The piece of the first floor of the library returned. Twilight leaped gracefully over the footboard of her bed and landed square in the middle of her mattress. She looked back at Spike and looked down at her. Both blushed. Neither said anything. Their little game reached its natural and more serious conclusion. Twilight bucked her hind end up. Spike lost the stirrups again, and held on to the rein. He landed on his belly on Twilight's back. She made smaller bucking movements. Each time, he moved a little further up her back. Each time, she moved her butt a little further into the air, and her face a little closer to the pillow. Soon, she
oh, you
stopped.
tank.
Her back legs were straight and her ass high in the air. Her ear was buried into the pillow. Spike was resting almost directly on top of her ass. He had his arms stretched out and the reins were pulled as far back as they could go. Oh, poor Twilight.
Yeah.
Spike, be gentle. Twilight's fragile. Spike tried to assess his position. The middle of his body was comfortably resting right between Twilight's two cheeks.
So weird.
From the scale of his small body, Twilight's ass was very large and round. Her cheeks were muscular, especially while flexing in his position, but they were also still soft. Twilight pulled her tail out of the way. She was ready. Spike could feel it. Her wetness was all over his scales. She seemed to like dressing up even more than he did.
Yeah, this is turning into a
Spike
plot.
started to rub himself against
Yeah, totally.
His abdominal scales were rubbing up and down against her... I hate that word. Were rubbing down up against her... You know, I like the word love.
I guess.
Rubbing up and down against her love. He could feel her wetness
What was
spreading
the
up and
original
down
word?
his body. He started moving her ass up and down just a bit,
I don't know if I want to
shifting
say
him
it.
up
Probably
and
too
down on her.
offensive for
He could feel she was getting impatient.
internet.
Spike could feel it coming. The tip of his dick started to slide down from between two of his scales. He grabbed her coat with
Really?
the reins still in his hands and positioned himself perfectly. He could feel his scales being shoved aside for his erection. The tip entered straight away into Twilight's love. She grunted in delight with the bit still in her mouth. Spike's rock hard... I said that would have sounded weird if I finished it like that.
Probably.
Spike's rock hard cock slid from his own body and into Twilight's. Then, Twilight set to work. She started bucking him gently. He had no leverage to work with, but she had good control. Each time he bounced up, his dick came sliding out and then fell back in again. Spike relaxed his body except for his grip on the reins and enjoyed the fucking. Twilight carefully balanced him as she bucked him. Sometimes she would bend her knees. Sometimes she would pull on the reins. Eventually she started to get the hang of it and started to buck harder.
Oh,
Sometimes
gosh.
he would come popping out of her, and she would chomp at the bit. Ha! chomp at the bit, chomping at the bit. And she would chomp at the bit until he could stick it back in. Once they both got a better feel for it, he too started to pull on the reins as he descended. She started flexing her ass cheeks as she caught more of him inside of her. Spike was living a dream. She felt so soft and wet, and so incredibly warm compared to his cold blood. The sensation was so intense. He couldn't control himself. He started to come already. He could feel it moving from deep inside of him, and then down through his shaft and out into Twilight. It was too fast. It was too good. He needed to settle down. Spike found it difficult to concentrate. Twilight was still bucking and harder than ever. He didn't think she had noticed him coming. He moved his tail down between his legs and up between Twilight's. He touched the end of it to Twilight's clit. She stopped bucking and screamed into her pillow. He hadn't been expecting it. Spike rubbed her off with the arrowhead-shaped portion of his tail. Twilight's ass cheeks occasionally spasmed, then flexed in uncontrolled delight. Spike could feel himself start to grow soft inside of her. He didn't have much time. He moved his tail up to the base of his cock, then pointing the tip down, he started to slide his tail into Twilight. She moaned underneath him and kept pushing it in. Each time the flexible fins of his tail folded under her clit. His tail jerked in a little more. He dropped the reins and let it fall around her head. He grabbed a hold of her ass. He had a better hold now that he was more dug in. Twilight remained motionless, except for the random involuntary quivering. She started pushing himself up and letting himself down, driving both his cock and his tail into her pussy at the same time. She was loving it. He had to dig his claws into her coat to keep from losing his balance when she started to heave her ass violently upwards. Spike's limp dick popped out. It's a nice image. He looked down at it. The little red shaft was slowly retreating back within its scales. It dribbled a little drop of white cum right in the center of her asshole. Oh, nice. And then it was gone. Twilight started to scream into her pillow, the bit still in her mouth. Spike could tell she was about to come. His tail was sopping wet. He slid his tail all the way in and started flexing it so that it was as hard as a brick.
Fanfictions.
Page 92, he thought to himself.
We're reading too many plot fics.
He let go of his hands.
Oh, sure, there will be other ones.
Then she started to jackhammer. Her whole body shook. There was vibrations within vibrations. The whole frame of the bed started to shake. Twilight tried to scream again, but it came out with a stutter. Twilight fell over to her side. The spike spilled out onto the bed. Her face now out of the pillow, she opened her mouth wide and screamed despite the bit. All four of her legs kicked randomly and wildly as she came. Her legs slowed down as it slowly faded. When she slowly opened her eyes and assessed her situation, Spike was cuddling against her back, stroking her mane.
Not gonna lie, that's
They rested there for a long time in the afterglow. The afternoon sun slowly moved across the bed. Eventually, Twilight rolled over to face him. He removed the bit from her mouth. She looked down at the featureless scales of his belly. "Did you come?" she asked. He nodded. "So did I. I noticed." "Are you ready to go again?" she asked. "Are you serious?
Oh.
It's still your special day, isn't it?" It was only mid-afternoon. Just a minute." She placed the tip of her hoof on the bottom of his chin, right where his abdominal scales started. She started counting down each of his scales. 1, 2,
random counting, I guess. 3.
Spike didn't know what she was doing at first. Twilight was a good study of dragon anatomy. She got down to her desired scales, and she kissed him right between them. He moaned and grabbed her head by her ears. She very delicately wedged her tongue up between his scales. She could feel the tip of his dick on the tip of her tongue. Oh, so it Is that how it works? Is that how it works with lizards? I don't know.
No, either.
Inside of... That's interesting.
Yeah. A bit,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
She very delicately wedged her tongue up between his scales. She could feel the tip of his dick on the tip of her tongue. It started to slide out and into her eager mouth. Now, that would be... I mean, I'm not saying I've sucking penis before, but that would be a little interesting. If you were just on that, and then it just it emerged itself. That'd be a little interesting.
Yeah.
Spike squeezed her as hard as he could without hurting her. She could taste herself on his cock. She rolled him over onto his back and started filleting him as fast as she could. It was easy to fit the whole thing into her mouth. She took the whole thing in and sucked as hard as she could. He screeched. How unpleasant. Then she slowly slid it out of her mouth, except for the head. She circled the hole at the tip with her tongue. "Turn around," he whispered. She looked up at him with her big purple eyes, still servicing him. "Turn around," he repeated. She popped his cock out of her mouth, got up, and turned around, straddling his head. "Her body's not long enough," she said. "I don't care," he said.
Oh, God.
"Come here." He grabbed her by her thighs and pulled her down to the top of his face. He eagerly licked up the dark purple lips of her pussy, and then down the middle. He tickled her clit and watched as her bright pink inner lips slowly got wetter and wetter. He shoved his face up into her and jammed in his tongue. Twilight couldn't do anything but let herself be pleased. She couldn't reach his cock to return the favor from this position. She had wanted to please him today, and instead he was paying more attention to her, as always. When she started to feel him flagging, she hopped off of him and rolled onto her back. "Oh," she said dramatically, "poor innocent me." Spike sat up to see what she was up to.
Oh, my God.
"Here I am, poor innocent virginal Princess Twilight, at the hands of the evil Dragon King. Oh, what will he do to me? Oh, no.
No. This is awful.
Spike grinned and started to crawl up her body. He unhooked her bridle, pulled it off of her, and threw it to the floor.
Yeah.
"Oh!" she gasped. He uncinched her saddle and pulled it out from underneath her. "He's ravishing me! Help! Where is my hero?" She spread her legs wide for him. He got in between them and plunged his cock into her. "My virtue! I'm ruined!" she cried,
This
and
is
then
so
she shut
fucking
up and let
weird.
him work. She looked down at him. He was pumping away furiously. He was finally paying attention to his own needs, exactly as she wanted him to. She watched his face. He was deep in concentration. He reached down and started to stroke his face. She reached down and started to stroke his face. She reached up and stroked his fin. He started to come. He smiled as he lost coordination. His hips pumped erratically. He pulled out his cock and shot his load on her belly, leaving dozens of little white droplets on her white coat. Then he collapsed into bed,
You mean lavender.
exhausted.
I guess probably just messed up.
Twilight pulled him up and rested his head on her pillow. She slowly pressed kisses all over her face. Sometimes she kissed him on the lips and slid her tongue in quickly, but mostly she focused on his cheeks and dimple. "Twilight?" He slowly opened his eyes. "What is it, Tiger?" she asked. "Can I ask something? Anything. Can I sleep with you tonight? I mean, in your bed?" It was still early. There was plenty to do before they would sleep. "Sure thing, hot stuff," she said.
God.
"And can I groom you again in the morning?" "Of course. We can do anything you'd like." "Anything? Really?" "Spike," she said, "I appreciate you every day of the year." Oh, looks like Spike's got some friendship with benefits here.
Okay, I gotta say one thing. This fanfiction was good, but it kind of weirded me out. Just the fact that Spike is a freaking baby, and he was doing this. I mean,
Unless he was a little bit older.
I don't know. Oh my god! And the whole literally riding her like a friggin'
Like a real horse.
oh my gosh! All right, we don't know what fanfiction we're gonna be doing next. We're gonna have to find one, but you know.
I think most likely it will be Lunati.
Probably, yeah.
But tragic part is we're gonna have to read that, and I found something interesting out about the Princess Molestia comic on this website called fimfiction.net. There's actually an epilogue to Princess Molestia. I didn't read it. I just skewed through it real fast, and at the end of it, it said begin Princess Lunati. So before we actually start Lunati, I'm going to read the epilogue to Princess Molestia first.
He'll most likely be reading it because I stutter a lot when I read, so...
I do stutter, but not a whole lot.
Alright, well that's the end of this video. Chomping on the bit. Pretty good fan fiction. Interesting, I'll say at the least. Interesting, and... oh.
And take care. Spike your hair. Woo, woo, woo. You know it.
Why do we keep doing that?
For fun.